I'm no good at taking good advice, and I'm self-careless, so don't tell me twice that lately I've been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless, maybe I'm self-helpless. Maybe I'm self-helpless. Maybe we are all self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless. I'm Delanie Fischer, and today is a very interesting mashup that we're doing. So, a few years back, we did an episode with Dr. Ramani, who is a clinical psychologist. And chances are, if you've done any kind of research about narcissism or you've watched TV segments, she pops up as one of the most notable experts in this field. And then we did a separate episode with Lee Hammock, who is a self aware narcissist and has been clinically diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. And if you've looked things up online or on social media, you have likely stumbled across Lee on TikTok or Instagram. And he shared with us that he actually started his accounts and his content to help more men get into therapy, especially men with NPD, to help destigmatize this disorder. But what he found was that he also became a go to resource for survivors of narcissistic abuse, which he was not expecting. So I thought it would be helpful to put parts of these episodes side by side for you. So in the first half of the episode, you're getting a foundation of what narcissism and NPD is from a clinical perspective by Dr. Ramani, who covers what it is, the different types of narcissism, provides definitions to a lot of the buzzwords you hear around it. And then the second half of the episode, you're hearing from Lee, who lives with this disorder. He's in therapy to help him implement changes around it. And he's very candidly sharing with us his thought process when he's being manipulative and calculated, where he believes this disorder stems from for him, and also guidance for people who are in a relationship with somebody like him. And look, some of this stuff might be tough to hear if you've experienced this kind of a dynamic in a relationship. So, of course, use discretion if you want to tune into this one. Personality disorder topics are still some of the most highly requested from this community to help understand and demystify them. So you can listen to all the full episodes we've done with Dr. Ramani. She's been on the show 3 times. We've done an episode about NPD, borderline personality disorder, also healing from one of these types of relationships as well. And then you can check out the full episode we did with Lee about living with NPD. But we also did an episode with one of our listeners, Chris, who was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And we did an episode with Dr. Sarkis all about gaslighting, and she's even written a book about the topic. There might be more episodes around this stuff that I might be forgetting since we have about 400 episodes now, but we will link all of the full episodes that I can remember right now for you in the show notes so you can dive deeper into this stuff if you would like. And just a heads up, today's mashup has a big focus on romantic relationships and narcissism, but the other episodes I mentioned cover a variety of examples and relationships and stuff like that. And then just a couple announcements before we get into it. We are in the process of collecting topic submissions from our patrons over at patreon.com/selfhelpless. So you can send in a topic you want to see covered on the podcast, and then we vote on the highest suggested topics as a community. And then we book the different experts or guests for you based on those. And then there's even an opportunity for you to send in specific questions you have for the special guest as well, so you can get a personalized response from them. So it's not too late to be a part of that process. If you would like to be, you can head over to patreon.com/selfhelpless for more info, or you can click the link in the episode's description as well. And finally, I have a fun little book coming out in December with lots of puns, lots of delicious things in there. It's a fun theme. I think that's probably all I can say about it for now, but I'll be starting to share about that soon, and there will be some pre-order gifts and goodies. So if you want to learn more about that, you can head over to my website, delaniefischer.com, and join my list, the D list over there. It's completely free to join. And when you do, you'll also get a bunch of other stuff from me. I like to share different gig and media opportunities, resources for creatives and multi-hyphenates. You'll hear when new podcast episodes are live. So you can also check that out, and the link will be in the show notes for you. All right, everybody, here is Dr. Ramani Durvasula and Lee Hammock. So, for some of our listeners, this is going to be their first introduction
Mhm,
into what NPD is. Can you share what is narcissistic
mhm.
personality disorder and or narcissism?
I'm gonna start with talking about narcissism first, because that's the
Okay.
topic that's gonna be more relevant to the people on this, listening to this, podcast. So, narcissism is a personality style characterized by a lack of empathy or very variable empathy, entitlement, grandiosity, arrogance, being very superficial, being very seeking of validation and admiration, being very, very, very sensitive to criticism, being able to dish it out, but you can't take it. There's a lot of hypocrisy. They can be very controlling. Um, they can be prone to jealousy if they feel like someone's getting something they're not. They are they're very rageful, and they have a lot of trouble regulating strong emotions, and they're very impulsive. They sort of do and say whatever they want whenever they want, shoot first, ask questions later, or offer apologies later, and
Mm.
they're very egocentric. But all of that is around a core deep insecurity. These are deeply insecure people, which is why they have all these really antagonistic, difficult kinds of grandiosity. Like, I'm the greatest, right? If you keep saying I'm the greatest enough, maybe you'll believe it and be able to push back on that unresolved insecurity, which is what they all have.
Mm.
And so that's narcissism. Now, in order for it to elevate to the level of a personality disorder, that's where we look for things like the person's narcissistic style is causing them what we call social or occupational impairment, meaning it's causing that they believe and they notice it's causing them problems in work and their relationships, and or that they have what we call subjective distress, that they themselves are uncomfortable. Here's where it gets tricky. People with narcissistic personality styles don't tend to be very self-reflective. They don't tend to stop and sit back and say, "Ooh, golly, my personality sure causing a lot of people for a lot of problems for a lot of people." They're
Right.
saying the other people are the problem. And that's a very classical dynamic in narcissism, is they deflect blame onto other people. That's someone else's fault. I'm not responsible for that. I didn't say that. I didn't do that. That's always someone else's fault. Never their own. They never take responsibility for anything.
Mm.
And so as a result, they don't even notice their marriage isn't going well. And even when it is, they blame their spouse. They don't even notice that they're wreaking havoc at work. Maybe one day they get fired. They're like, "Oh, everyone's out to get me." So they
Mm.
don't they and for many narcissists, the world goes their way. We enable these patterns because they're so charismatic, they're so charming, they're so confident when you first meet them, that a lot of people say, well, they got to be doing something right if they're like this. And because they can be quite ruthless, especially in business, they're often quite successful.
Mm.
And so people, well, they can't be such a bad person. They're so successful at what they do. And I say the two are mutually exclusive at times. And so for all these reasons, not everybody who has this style would meet the criteria for having the disorder. To me, the disorder is irrelevant. If you've got
Wow.
this personality pattern, I don't care. It's not about diagnosis to me. It's about the problems you're causing for other people by behaving like this. And the fact is, at the core of it, a narcissistic person, because they're so insecure, is actually very uncomfortable, and they need help too, but they're just really resistant to it.
Wow. Okay, so are there different types of narcissism? Can it be displayed in different ways?
The absolutely can be displayed in different ways. I often think of it sort of in like six, maybe seven different ways. The most classical way we think of narcissism is the grandiose narcissist. Look at me. I'm so great. I'm so cool. No one's got a better car than me. I've got so many muscles. I'm so attractive. Instagram, Instagram, like. I'm an influencer. Like, it's a lot of that stuff. That's more of
Right.
the grandiose narcissist.
Okay.
Then we have the covert narcissist. The covert narcissist is not as well understood, but probably a lot more people encounter it than they think. It's characterized by resentment, sullenness, this sense that I deserve better. The world never gave me what I deserved. So they're entitled, but not entitled to, I'm too important to wait in the line. It's more like, oh, I deserve so much more than what life has given me. That's the kind of entitlement. They often
Mhm.
portray themselves as victims, and people around them often feel that they should try to rescue them or help them because they kind of feel they seem so downtrodden. And that's how they often portray themselves to the world. The third type is a type we call communal narcissism, which is a subtype where people, in this case, they get their validation by doing good things for the world. So they will go out and they will they will rescue animals, and they will have big fundraisers, and they will do things to make themselves look good to the world, but they're not necessarily just doing those do-gooder things for the greater good. They're doing it for themselves to get validation. Oh, what a humanitarian, or what a good person. And they are like, these are people who will be sponsoring a village of children on the other side of the world, but don't give their own children at home the time of day. They are people who are on the gala stage saying, oh, everyone's like, what a great humanitarian. But the minute the lights are off and the doors are closed, they're screaming at their partner. This is the person who's called a pillar of the community by everyone, and it's somebody's father. And yet as a father, they're really cruel and abusive. And yet their children feel, and their spouse feels, completely unable to say anything, because everyone thinks of this person as sort of like the pillar of the community. So that's a communal narcissist. The next kind of narcissist is the malignant narcissist. This is probably the most dangerous form of narcissism, because these are people who are not only, lack empathy and all the rest of it, but they can be very exploitative, like really take advantage of people, shake money down from them, manipulate, money, sex, you name out of them. There's something very menacing about them. Like they're always sort of like this sense of a threat always hanging out there. Like, you better not mess with me. That's all I've got to say. Like they like that kind of menacing feel they put out there. They can be very paranoid. They always feel everyone's out to get them. And they can be quite sadistic. Like they actually, in a divorce, for example, a malignant narcissist can be quite dangerous. They'll fight for custody, not even because they like the kids, but because they know that it'll really hurt the other parent. So they're very, very, very motivated by taking revenge. I'm going to get this person's going to pay for this for the rest of their lives. They will file lawsuits, that kind of thing, anything to bring harm onto others. Another form of narcissism is the neglectful narcissist. The neglectful narcissist is the sort of person who just has so little empathy for others that they just simply stop noticing them until they need them. So they tend to view people as conveniences, that, it's a bit like my phone. I'm not really paying attention to my phone now, but the moment I need my phone, I'm looking for it. I'm aware of it. They treat people that way. So when they need them, they'll pay attention to them. But at all other times, they just don't care. They're completely cut off. And then finally, there's the self-righteous narcissist. And the self-righteous narcissist is really sort of hyper moralistic above it all. They believe they live their lives at this very high level, and they tend to look down in this really contemptuous way at other people. They criticize, like, I can't believe you put that in your mouth. I live clean. Or, I am the most loyal person. And they often are deeply loyal, but they're loyal and abusive at the same time. So they may not be the narcissists who cheat and all of that. They're very, very, in a way, can look really straight and narrow, but they use their morality as a way to almost beat people over the head. And their loyalty feels more like a prison than it does like a real sort of devotion to someone else. They're very judgmental. They're very dismissive. If you do one thing that they don't like, they will make an example of it. People, when they're in the presence of a self-righteous narcissist, will often say, I feel like I'm constantly a 9-year-old who's getting in trouble. They're very scoldy. And then the final piece, and this isn't really a type of narcissism, but an overarching theme that we need to keep in mind, is that these patterns can be very cultural and very generational. In cultures that tend to be deeply patriarchal, deeply authoritarian, very hierarchical, with big gaps between those at the top and those at the bottom, those are cultures that really beget narcissism or enable or incentivize narcissism, especially if you're somebody who holds power in those societies. And what that can mean is that when a person maybe leaves one of those societies and comes to a culture where that's not so much like that, that pattern may last. And these patterns tend to run in families. So in that way, when there's let's say a 30-year-old narcissistic person, they may have a 60-year-old narcissistic parent and a 90-year-old narcissistic grandparent. And so because it's so intergenerational, the family doesn't even notice that the pattern is toxic.
I didn't know there were so many different ways that somebody could be a narcissist.
Yeah.
How does somebody develop narcissism? Are you born with it? Is it nature versus nurture? Does it happen over time? Does something traumatic happen?
It's probably not something someone's born with. I think what a person may end up being born with is a difficult temperament. So there's babies out there. If anyone's ever spent time with a baby or a small child, there's some kids that are more difficult. They are. They tend to be more maybe colicky as babies. They tend to be a bit more attention seeking. They tend not to, like, they're just kind of, they need, and they're difficult. And that almost sets up a cycle where they are antagonizing everyone in their worlds. And people aren't always nice to kids like this, right? The parents lose patience, the teachers lose patience, even their peers lose patience. It does make you wonder for some kids if there's not sort of this intersection between their temperament and the world not really liking them, that insecurity growing, and then them figuring out these sort of superficial ways to maintain validation because they think if they get validation, they'll be safe. In some cases, what we're seeing is these are children who, and it gets mostly made. It's very little born. So in some kids, they're very, very overindulged with regard to stuff, like go on vacations and they have the latest gadgets and toys and they live in a nice place. But their parents are nowhere to be found emotionally. So the parents will like buy the things and do the things, but nobody's really nurturing the child, or the child only gets noticed when they're doing things that the parent wants them to do. Oh, there's my basketball playing guy. But let's say basketball playing guy switches interests, that parent may no longer be interested in them. So the child learns things are very conditional. That's another way we can make narcissism. In some cases, narcissism is a response to trauma. And so this idea that cutting off of emotion, that being distanced from empathy and not being capable of intimacy and all of that distancing can definitely be something you would see in somebody who's experienced trauma. But again, the majority of trauma survivors are not narcissistic. So that's a one path, but it's not all people who experience trauma. And and then I think there's a lot of people who believe that narcissism is a manifestation of a certain attachment issue. So we look at attachment through our early relationships with our early caregivers. They're usually parents. So a person who's securely attached is someone who feels safe in the world, who feels that they can call upon people and people will respond to them. They feel secure in themselves. They have a well-shaped identity and they can enter healthy adult relationships. People who are narcissistic are believed to have what are called anxious and avoidant attachments. In anxious attachments, you often wonder if somebody's going to leave you. When they say goodbye, there's a bit of chaos. When you come back together, there's a bit of chaos. And avoidant attachments are seen in people who are actually somewhat disinterested in what should be significant people in their lives. So in this big stew of things I'm telling you, all of this mixes up. And that's in some mix of all of this is how we create a narcissist. Narcissistic parents beget narcissistic children, but not all the time. Some people listening to this podcast will say, yeah, I had a parent who's a narcissist and I have one sibling who's a narcissist and the rest of us are really anxious. And that's usually how it goes. It's not all the kids in the system, though I have seen that. There are some families where I've seen 2, 3 children grow up to be narcissistic. But when there's a narcissistic parent, it does tend to be that it's only one and other children grow into a different kind of an adulthood pattern. We don't even use this label, and I don't think it's right to use the label of narcissistic until somebody's over the age of 25. Almost by definition and by design, adolescents are narcissistic, not because they're mean and awful, but because the way their brain is developing and differentiating, they're deeply egocentric and they're building out to their own sense of identity. They're impulsive. It all has to do with how these frontal lobes and other neuronal connections are being made between this area of the brain and others. So I always tell parents, here's the thing. I don't know what's going to happen. Don't call your 17-year-old a narcissist. You're going to have to wait till they're 25 or 26. If they're still narcissistic at 26, you'll say, I saw that one coming.
Right.
But you may also find this child who rises up. The brain does what it's supposed to do. They get hit with the realities of emerging adult life, and they start functioning not as sort of selfish, not willing to empty the dishwasher creatures that wander through the world. And maybe that's just my problem with my kids.
Right. Okay. So I'd imagine if the very nature of narcissism is not being able to take responsibility or not being reflective, I'd imagine this is probably hard to diagnose as somebody. Are they like seeking treatment? Is it hard to diagnose somebody with narcissism if they're not really seeking help?
So people who are narcissistic, you're right, they're less likely to seek out therapy. However, stuff's always going wrong in their lives because they're always aggravating people. So a narcissistic person may have their partner leave them or their marriage end. They'll go into therapy saying, my marriage is over and I was over. My partner told me I have to come to therapy, or they come in saying, I don't understand why my relationship ended. They're sad about that, right? Another way they come in is workplace stuff. Somebody files a lawsuit against them. They get fired. They lose their money because they're behaving badly in the workplace. So some event, something bad goes wrong in their life, especially something that makes them look bad, like a relationship ending or losing their money or losing their job. Those are the things that will get them into therapy. Once they get into therapy, the probability is that they're going to drop out of therapy pretty quickly. Narcissistic people are about 60% more likely to drop out of therapy prematurely. So especially when we start going into deeper emotional stuff. So when you really start trying to grind in, that's when they're saying, yeah, no, thank you. And really they wanted to come in and sort of complain to someone for about 3 to 6 weeks. And then when it really starts meaning doing the work, they grow less interested. Every so often there's that narcissistic unicorn who says they actually commit to doing the work and they say, I have hurt so many people. And they'll even say, though, the daily work, like they'll say, I see that I hurt a lot of people. I know that wasn't nice, but I actually don't like having to be bothered with being nice to everyone. And this is really exhausting for me. So they'll notice how exhausting it is for them. They don't like it, but they will recognize that, for example, sometimes when they become parents, that sometimes they notice that they're harming their kids. They may try to step up then. But it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare. It almost never happens.
So it is possible to be like a self-aware narcissist, but even if you're self-aware, maybe treatment doesn't really stick.
I think it's actually, it's a special place in hell. Like it's a special hell to be a self-aware narcissist. And in that, I mean that you almost know that I'm hurting people. I don't like feeling this way, but in the same breath, they'll say, and I don't want to listen to other people's feelings. This is so tedious and boring. And so they'll just feel like, and I'll say, but you have to not only listen, you have to be present and be willing to have empathy. And some have said to me, and I remember one case in particular, he said, and that's how I'll be better. And better, it's not because like he has a disease. I say, you really do need to be present and available and mindful. He's like, you know what? Then I'm done. And he got a divorce. He broke up with the lady he was having an affair with. He moved in by himself. And he's like, I'm just hiring someone to have sex with. I am not doing this anymore. Wow. He's like, I can't do it. He's like, I can't do it. And I can't be bothered. And it doesn't feel important to me.
That is fascinating. So I know there's a lot of different terminology related to narcissism. If you don't mind, can I just list some off and then you can give a brief explanation? Yeah. Awesome. So what is gaslighting?
So gaslighting is the denial of the reality of another person with the goal of confusing them, filling them with self-doubt, and being able to continue holding power over them. Classic gaslighting statements are things like, that never happened, I never said that, you're being too sensitive, stop making such a big deal out of this. And gaslighting is not a one-off. It happens over time. Sometimes it's little things like, oh, God, you're being so sensitive. And the person who's being gaslighted starts internalizing it, like, maybe I am too sensitive. Because that's what we tend to do. We try to, healthy people do try to notice, like, what if this might be me? And since things keep happening over and over again, and you're having all this strong emotion in this relationship, you start believing their hype that you're too sensitive. As part of gaslighting, people may even accuse someone of being mentally ill. Oh, it seems like someone's quite paranoid, or is your memory okay? Maybe you need to see a doctor. But they're doing that to destabilize the person and be able to hold power and be able to hold dominance in a relationship, as it were. And that's what gaslighting is.
Okay. And then what is hoovering? How might a narcissist hoover somebody? What does that mean?
So hoovering, the hoover is a vacuum cleaner, is sucking someone back into a relationship. So the narcissistic relationship cycle has very clear, sort of a clear architecture to it. There's the love bombing phase, and falling in with a narcissist is actually unlike, it's you get swept away and everything happens so quickly. And like 10 days in, you're going on a vacation on the other side of the world, and people move in too quickly. Everything happens quick. It's a real mark of a narcissistic relationship. Well, the love bomb period lasts anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks. Then starts the devaluing period, where there's a little bit more of the sniping, the gaslighting, like this big, bright love bombing experience you had. You're like, what just happened? And now it's almost as though just when you commit to something with them, just when they sort of know they have you, they devalue you. The phase after devaluing is discarding. Now, discarding can take a lot of different forms. Sometimes they literally leave, they break up. Sometimes they cheat. Sometimes they keep comparing you to other people, like, oh, my ex didn't do this, or my this didn't do that, or there's this lady at work and who's like this, or it'll be a lot of comparison. But in this process, it's like they're no longer present, whether they're literally not present, but they don't feel present. And sometimes the discard is it accumulates so much that the person leaves the relationship themselves. Once the relationship is no longer there, remember, narcissists love novelty. They love the chase. They love the win. They love the hunt. So once you're gone out of their life, they suck you back in. That's the hoovering. And it becomes love bomb part 2. For them, it's exciting to think if they can win. Can I draw them back in? I send them a late night text. Hey, baby, just thinking about you. And I was so wrong. I can't believe I treated you so badly. I was going through some really bad stuff. I'm so sorry. You deserve so much better than me. And then people respond. Maybe tentatively, but then narcissistic people are masterful when it comes to manipulation. And then they slowly start sucking the person in. Whole cycle starts again.
And what is breadcrumbing?
So breadcrumbing is that in a narcissistic relationship, it's part of the devaluing phase. You start going on less and less. So it's sort of, you will start thinking that it's okay that we haven't, take the pandemic out, it's okay that we haven't left the house and eaten out of anything but takeout containers for 12 weeks. Wow, they actually said they were thinking about me once this week. I'm so excited. So it's like so little is being given. And so every little breadcrumb, like not they're neglectful, they're cold, they're callous, they're dismissive. And then there's a like, hey, just thinking about you, babe. And they're like, oh, they're really into me. And the person's like staring at their phone as though this was, it's just because it happens so rarely, even the littlest things almost get overheld. And then the person uses those little things to justify all of the behavior in the relationship.
And then I've also heard scapegoating.
So scapegoating tends to be something that we observe in narcissistic family systems. And the scapegoated person is usually the person who's getting the worst of the narcissist. So the scapegoated person becomes the narcissistic person's punching bag. They become the person who gets the criticism of the narcissistic person. They become the person who is almost the butt of the jokes and becomes the receptacle for all of the narcissist rage. So the scapegoat it's as though the scapegoat is the person that the narcissistic person projects the worst of themselves onto. It's as though the narcissist, imagine it's a narcissistic parent. In the scapegoat, they see things about themselves that they don't like, a certain weakness or something like that. So the narcissistic, or maybe they resemble someone they don't like, who knows? But that the narcissistic parent then will project all of this, the negative stuff about themselves onto that scapegoated person. And it's tremendous toll to be the scapegoat in a family system.
What is a smear campaign?
So narcissistic people don't like to lose when it comes to relationships, and they definitely don't like to look bad. So what will happen, especially as a narcissistic relationship is on the rocks, or there's conflict, or even ends, the narcissistic person will often go and reach out to what are called flying monkeys, which are people who are, you both likely knew, if you assuming both of you had their family members, their friends, whatever. And the narcissist will start reaching out to all of them and saying, I just hope you know what this person's like, and da 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 da. So we'll say all these terrible things about you. And these people hearing these terrible things, and once having had an affiliation with both of you, believe them because you're not reaching out and saying this stuff. And that now all of a sudden, the person who was ended or out of or whatever impacted by this narcissistic relationship is noticing everyone's distanced. No one's returning their calls. A lot more people are cold. Some people are even saying, wow, you didn't give that person a fair shake. This can happen not just in intimate relationships, but in family relationships. Let's say somebody has a narcissistic parent and say, enough, I am setting a boundary. That parent will then often spread lies, smear campaign, and say, can you believe it? I just went to them and asked them for a little help with a doctor's appointment, and they just rejected me. Well, that's not a very nice story, but it's much, much more. It's completely unrelated to that. And then before you know it, people are saying, how could you be so cruel to your parent? That's terrible. I can't believe you don't respect your own parent, or family first, and all this other stuff. And the person in the relationship saying, you've got to be kidding me. Sadly, during these smear campaigns, you really do learn who's got your back.
Mm.
And sometimes you realize that, wow, I'm not just losing the narcissist, I'm going to have to lose all these other people too.
And then baiting. This will be the final one. There's so many terms, but I
That's
encourage
okay.
everybody listening to go to Dr. Ramani's YouTube channel because there's all kinds of explanations. But yeah, we'll end with baiting before we move on.
So remember, narcissists love a fight. The fighting is their ground game. They love fights, they love chaos, all of that. Baiting is when they drop something, hoping that you'll take the bait. Whether it's a criticism, whether it's an innuendo, whether it's an accusation, something. And then you might take that bait. They might make a comment. So a great example of baiting is just say, okay, I can be stronger than this. I don't care what they say about me. But then they start making comments about a beloved friend or family member. Boom, you go in, they get their fight.
Gotcha. So let's say that someone has recognized that they're in a relationship with someone who has narcissistic tendencies or NPD, and they've decided they want to leave the relationship. What
Mhm.
are the best steps for that person to take to leave the relationship as safely as possible?
So first of all, it is a safety assessment. I'm going to just, for the sake of this podcast,
Mm,
assume that this is not a physically abusive, violent relationship, at least
right,
not physically violent.
right.
Um, that said, I tell people that you really want to have your plan in place. This is not something you want to do on a whim. If you live with somebody, get some of those important things you need out of there. Make sure you have funds to be able to pay for wherever you're going to go. Make sure you have therapy as a support to talk about this, because that moment of separation can feel really, really scary. And some people are so scared that they end up not seeing it through. Again, I'm going to use sort of the intimate relational frame here because it doesn't fit as well in the family relationship.
Okay.
I would also make sure that you've got your plan in place before you leave. Like, where are you going to go? Where are you going to be? You don't want to be driving around the streets trying to find a hotel or something like that. Like, you really want to have a plan set, and ideally, maybe something you've organized with a friend who may not have a relationship with your partner, so you're not they're not feeling that they're affected by it.
Okay.
If there are safety issues, you may, if at the point you're going to leave, you may need to have someone with you, something like that, just to make sure that everything's okay. But even that's not a guarantee. But that could be a place to start. And and then if this is going to be a divorce, if you have kids, you have to be prepared for the fight of a lifetime. It's going to be one of the hardest things you
Mm.
ever do.
And so I also heard about that there's like a couple options with like going no contact or the Grayrock method.
Hmm.
And can you
Hmm.
speak to some of those things as
Hmm.
well?
So, because narcissistic personality styles are so resistant to change, that there's really nothing you can say or do to be able to get these relationships to become a healthy place. Now, in some cases, people have the luxury of leaving. They do, or they choose to leave. And the most extreme form of leaving is going no contact. You cut off all contact with that person. Whether you block their phone number, don't receive their emails, don't tell them where you're going, they cannot get in touch with you. Okay. Now, for a lot of relationships, that's simply not possible. If you're co-parenting, it's not possible. If it's a family member where you still have links to other family members in the system, it may not be possible. The next level down is something we call gray rocking. Gray rocking can work whether you leave or stay in the relationship. It's exactly what it sounds like, a gray rock. What is a gray rock? Is the most uninteresting, unnoticeable kind of an object out there, right? Well, to
Mm.
gray rock means you make yourself completely inert, uninteresting, and boring. You give one word answers. You don't engage. You don't ask them how they're doing. You don't make accusations about their behavior. You have no interest in their life. So it'd be like, yeah, sure. Didn't know that. Wow. Okay. Like an app could have this relationship. You could just program it to
Right.
say those things, right? And so it's gray rocking is where this way you can't get baited, right? Now, one of
Okay.
the challenges with gray rocking is narcissistic people don't like when you gray rock because then they can't get into the arguments. They can't draw you into the mud. And a lot of people will report that once they start gray rocking, the narcissistic person's agitation increases even more. One day they finally will get really bored with you and leave because they're not getting anything out of you, but you have to tolerate the roller coaster going up first.
Okay. And so what are narcissists getting out of treating people this way? What do they get in return? Is it power? I know that there's a term narcissistic supply. What are they benefiting from?
So when a narcissistic person treats a person badly, that's not so much a benefit for them in most cases, other than the malignant narcissists who are trying to keep power. But by and large, they actually don't like that they look so unhinged. It's not a good look, right? To look unhinged. The blowing up and getting angry and raging is a manifestation of their insecurity, of not getting their way, of having of feeling insecure in a relationship, of the potential fear of abandonment, of being made to look bad in public. Basically, the shame gets activated in them, and that leads to rage. And now they look bad because they're raging, so then they have more shame, and then they have more rage. So that's why that ends up happening. Yeah, sure, in some cases, like I said, in malignant narcissistic cases, that's when they'll say, you ever do that to me again? And it'll feel very menacing. That's when they're probably using their rage to control someone. And there's a phenomenon called coercive control, where a person is sort of psychologically abused and kept stuck in a relationship because of this constant use of fear, financial abuse, threatening other people that are close to the victim, like they keep people in place that way. The more interesting question is actually, what do narcissists get from their relationships? And what they get is supply, right? It's narcissistic supply, which is validation, admiration, being told they're great, being made to feel they're important, being the center of attention. In any way, if that gets threatened or thrown off, then they don't like that. And that's when you'll also get some rage. If they feel like they're not the center of attention, or somebody says, hey, you need to stop talking. Your wife is so interesting. There'll be a blow up when all those party guests exactly.
Okay. Many victims of narcissistic abuse have expressed concern with the fact that many narcissists will actually publicly claim to be victims of narcissistic abuse when their victim escapes them, especially because the discard phase and the going no contact method, they might look similar to an outsider. So how can someone on the outside figure out who the real narcissist is and who the victim is, if at all?
If you know both players in a relationship, I would say, have them tell you the story. Okay. Say, tell me what, instead of who's who here, give me a program. It's more of a, tell me what happened. In many cases, the healthier person will say, this became impossible. I was constantly being controlled. I was being invalidated. I was chronically criticized. This person had so much contempt for me. They will start showing I was gaslighted. Then when you talk to the other person, the narcissistic person, they're more likely to give you a story full of accusation. They'll often make accusations like that person was a gold digger, that person was on the make. They will really frame this person. It'll all be accusatory rather than about the rhythms of the relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you have access to both people, that's what that would look like. But I agree with you. Many, 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 many narcissistic people out there will weaponize the word against somebody who is not this way to say, oh, can you believe what happened to me? I was narcissistically abused. Listen, narcissistic people have a certain look and feel to them. So if you know what you're looking for, and I think the problem is, the reason narcissists are so enabled is that we're all so caught up in I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Benefit of the doubt are the four most dangerous words in the English language. Because what it does is it gives people these second chances when they've significantly betrayed trust. And it doesn't mean, and I'm a big believer that you can compassionately disengage. You can say, you know what? I don't think we're both bringing out the best in each other at this point. I don't think we're growing together anymore. Narcissist doesn't care. They're going to still scream at you no matter what you say, but you can compassionately step back from that and not engage. A narcissistic person will often put lots of passive aggressive stuff on social media. A healthy person won't do that.
All very good to know. And I know there's a lot of stories out there too regarding being involved with a narcissist that are pretty frightening, like stories about stalking and fraud and lying to police and cyber stalking and neglect and theft and emotional and verbal and physical abuse, defamation of character, so many really scary, serious stuff. Does the person with narcissism, do they know that these things were wrong or are wrong and they just don't care? Or is it completely justified in their own head and they truly believe they're doing the right or just thing?
So a big issue that comes up with people who are in relationships with narcissistic people is do they know that these things they're doing are bad? Do they get that they're lies, they're fraud, they're defaming me on social media? Do they get this? This is where it's important to understand the impulsivity piece of narcissism.
Yeah.
When the narcissist shame and insecurity are pinged, they're not thinking about anything. They are thinking about this absolutely blind idea of defending themselves at any cost. They don't care what they have to do. It's because remember, there is a singular obsession with narcissistic people, and that's winning. They have to win. They cannot be the ones who look like they were played. The idea of getting played for a narcissist is a nightmare. So they do all of those things to avoid that sense. Now, after the fact, if someone's like, that wasn't okay, what you did wasn't okay, immediately the narcissist is going to say, well, let me tell you what that other person did. They never cop to what they're being held to task for. They always deflect and make it about, well, they were this and they were that and that one this and that one that, but they never ever are able to reflect on their behavior.
And then let's say someone displays textbook signs of narcissism, and maybe a loved one wants to talk to them about their narcissism. Should you ever try to talk to a narcissist about their narcissism?
No.
Okay, and why
Absolutely
is that?
not.
Why is
Because the narcissistic people are by definition extremely defensive.
that?
Okay. But by you calling them narcissistic, you're telling them they have a flaw and they don't like having flaws. They will immediately rage, gaslight, tell you you're the narcissist, go into this big word salad tantrum where you can't even understand what they're talking about, pretty much do everything short of froth at the mouth. So they will go completely off the deep end. It's not worth it because not only did you not get anywhere with this conversation, you now have to experience the exhaustion of that whole tirade. So there's no getting through to them. Sadly, the main way life gets through to the narcissist is when everything goes wrong for them. They have to sort of hit their proverbial rock bottom. They have to lose the family. They have to get the lawsuit. They have to do the terrible thing, as it were. And only then, and then there has to be real consequences. Maybe they have to go to jail. Maybe they have to lose all their money. Maybe they have to lose their reputation. Only then might you get to see in some of these cases a tiny bit of being contrite.
What kind of personality types do narcissists tend to go after when they're looking for a person or people to control?
They look for people they can control. And so personality type wise, that might be someone who's deeply empathic. So that deeply empathic person is always going to be giving them benefit of the doubt, showing them empathy, giving them supply. They look for rescuers, people who like to help people. Oh, you don't have a car? Is that why you can't? Oh, take my car. I'll take the bus. Or, oh, you don't have a place to stay? No worries. Why don't you just move into my place? So the people, I'll introduce you to my friend or my uncle. He's got a company. So it's that rescuer type of thing. They look for people who are deeply forgiving, almost to a fault. To forgive is divine. I forgive anyone no matter what they do. They will then climb in there and say, boom, I can get away with anything I want and I'm going to face no consequences. They look for people. One thing that narcissistic people are very good at doing is this sort of mirroring and emulating. Early in the relationship, they'll seem really empathic, like, tell me what's your greatest fear. You think you're having this intimate conversation? That's intel. They're figuring out what those fears are. They're putting them in some sort of strange vault in their brain, and then they pull those things out. You might say, oh, you know what? I've always struggled with my weight. And then before you know it, in the devalue phase, like someone's put on a little bit of weight, boom, they've taken your vulnerability, they've turned it into a weapon. So they look for people who are very vulnerable and willing to share. Then they look for people who are going through transitions. People are going through a divorce or a breakup, who've moved to a new city, people who haven't quite found their footing, who are reliant on them or vulnerable in some way, have far less money than them or something, like far less status. They find those people that they know that they're going to be able to control through whatever they've got. So if somebody doesn't have money and they meet a narcissist who does, the narcissist knows they'll probably be able to control them with money. Very quickly, they might say, oh, baby, why don't you quit your job? I got you. Like, you shouldn't be wasting your time in that job. You're my baby. I love you. And then before you know it, you're fully being financially controlled by this person.
Oh, wow. And then I saw on your YouTube channel that gift giving and narcissism can have a quite interesting connection. Can you explain why receiving gifts from a narcissist can be a bit complicated?
Receiving gifts from a narcissist is just basically you voluntarily setting yourself up for manipulation. Because whether it's an hour later or 10 years later, they're going to say, well, I guess, I bought you all those gifts and I did all that for you, and this is all I get for it. And so they're narcissistic people are incredibly transactional. Okay. To them, relationships are about I give you this, you give me that. Sometimes the transaction is around narcissistic supply, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's status, sometimes it's sex, but it's all very transactional. They don't like this idea that you just love someone and you're there for them, you give to them, that works for them receiving that from you, but not them giving that back to someone else. So a gift is no different than that, right? They to them, gifts are a way to control. I've given you all these gifts. Gifts are a way of getting supply. You walking around on Instagram saying, look what my generous partner gave me. Um, Gifts are a way of expressing grandiosity, but there's so many functions that gift giving can serve for a narcissistic person. Gift giving can also be a place of cruelty, like, oh, really? So you want this from me? That's a very expensive gift. And now you feel sort of humiliated or ashamed, where they might have sort of baited you. And then when you say, well, sure, that sounds like a really pretty gift, like, I knew it, you were a gold digger. So it all becomes a manipulation. And so it's a very fraught space. One of the most unwise things a person could ever do is take a gift from a narcissist.
So if you believe that maybe somebody in your life is a narcissist and they're offering you or trying to give you a gift, how could you maneuver your way out of that?
I am so grateful to you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And you just try to get out. You're going to have to play their game for a minute and say, like,
Yeah.
you know what? I am so good. Like, I am actually not a super, like somebody who wants this kind of thing. I'd actually just love the time with you. I'd love that you spend that on something that has meaning to you. They'll rage it because now what you've done is you've rejected them. There's no getting around this. Like, if you accept the gift, they'll manipulate you about the gift forever. If you reject the gift, you've rejected them. You cannot win. That's the mantra of the narcissistic relationship. You cannot win.
I know you mentioned the devaluation phase, like maybe in a romantic relationship. Is there something particular that can trigger that phase? How do they move from love bombing to devaluation? Does something usually happen, or is it just kind of a natural course of time?
Once they know you're in and you've settled in, and that can usually either happen because you've moved in together, you've exchanged I love yous, maybe you've moved to the city where they live. Now that you're like a butterfly that they've caught under glass, you're not going anywhere. And at that moment, they're like, checkmate and not interesting anymore.
So it's kind of like they get a bit bored.
Yeah,
They
they
kind of
get
get
bored.
bored and then
Yeah.
it's like a game. Okay.
Narcissistic supply gets very stale to narcissists. They're novelty seekers. That's why they cheat. That's why they always want the next big shiny thing. They really do need novelty. Then people say, well, do they ever get into long-term relationships? All the time, because it makes them look good to society. So they'll want the marriage that lasted a long time. What a stable person. They've been in a relationship for a long time, but they will get bored with that relationship and they will be cheating and whatever else. Maybe it's drugs, however they get their jollies outside of that relationship.
So is it possible to have a successful relationship with a narcissist then? Or it might look a certain way, but the reality of the situation is never truly healthy?
It depends on what you mean by successful.
Okay.
My short answer to that would be no, because
Yeah.
a relationship with a narcissistic person is one that's devoid of respect. It's
Mm.
devoid of mutuality, reciprocity, compassion, kindness, consistency, growth. You don't have any of those things.
Mm.
So it's very transactional. It tends to be very controlling. There's just really no there. And so I don't see, but I think some people get stuck because they have kids, because they become financially dependent, because their culture would look very badly upon them if they were to step out of the relationship because they're afraid of being single, whatever the reasons are. But it's not because they're not saying because of the healthiness of it.
How do narcissists really feel about themselves underneath this facade that they kind of portray for other people?
I've had that rare opportunity with some narcissistic clients where we go there and they feel absolutely terrible. It is despair, it is disgust, it is anguish, it's despair. It's probably the best word I can use. They don't feel good about themselves. Very rarely do people get to peer behind that curtain though. That's sometimes after
Mm.
years of working with a narcissistic client when the bottom finally falls out. Do I really get to hear that moment of despair? How it manifests to the world is when those despair moments get activated as rage, as really noisy arrogance. They get angry, and people see that as this irritability and anger. But the way they think of themselves, very so often they'll tell that truth of like, I am such a blah, 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 terrible person or whatever. But the problem with narcissism is how unconscious these conflicts are, right? All this stuff I'm talking about, insecurity, they're not aware of that. If you went up to a narcissist and say, I think you're very insecure, then they throw a tantrum. You know what the hell you're talking about? You're the one who's insecure, blah, 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 blah. They'd never, ever, ever cop to it, ever. Like if you called me insecure right now, I'd be like, heck yeah, so insecure. And I'm willing to list the ways to you right now.
Right.
And I know that my insecurities sometimes mean that I don't behave optimally because I live with them. I'm the best friends with my insecurities. They're not. They need to view themselves as perfect, and they need the world to view them as perfect.
What are the common signs or symptoms somebody might experience when they're healing from a narcissistic relationship? Let's say they've left. What might they be experiencing on a day-to-day from that traumatic situation?
Ongoing confusion, lots of self-doubt, difficulty making decisions, symptoms that feel almost obsessive compulsive because they felt so out of control that they might get overly caught up in routines, rigid routines and order, a sense of helplessness and that nothing they do can really change things for them, a sense of hopelessness that things aren't going to get better. There might be problems with sleep. They might be having all kinds of physical symptoms, tension symptoms. They may feel very anxious. They may not get the same kinds of joys out of life that they once did. They may have a real sense of apathy of like, ugh, why bother? I mean, it's not a pretty picture because people are so confused when they leave these relationships. There's a lot of grief because there's grief over time lost. There's grief over lost experiences. There's self-blame and self-anger. People will spend months, years, decades sometimes saying, this was my fault. I was too stupid to see this. And I tell everyone, why would you have known this? Listen, the majority of graduate programs don't even have a course on narcissism. So I say, unless you, because my videos are relatively new. I mean, no one was really writing about this or talking about this other than in a very researchy way, and definitely not in a sort of high conflict way until maybe the last 10 to 15 years. And so nobody talked about this. I've talked to people who've been married for 40 years and said, I didn't know this was a thing. The minute you described it to me, every puzzle piece fit, they got out. But they said, for the first 38 years, I didn't even know this was a way to be. So that people really, they blame themselves and it's not their fault. That's like, it's like blaming yourself for getting hit, for being in the way of a punch instead of blaming the assailant.
Let's say, somebody listening right now, maybe they believe they have narcissism or NPD and they do want to seek treatment.
Mm-hmm.
What would be their first step?
I would say therapy would be very important and to be self-aware in therapy. Interestingly, if the average person went into therapy and said, hey, therapist, I think I'm narcissistic and I want to work on it, the therapist probably wouldn't believe them because they'd say, well, nobody would ever admit to it, right? So I almost tell people, don't say that part of it. Talk about the patterns in your life that are raising concerns. The second thing I'd say is you need to learn to become self-aware, self-reflective, and mindful in everything you do. Every time you open your mouth, before you do it, even if it feels like you're in one of those delays where the words don't match up to the mouth, but every time, stop, catch yourself, and ask yourself, what I'm about to say, could this hurt the other person? Am I being very clear? And am I accounting for their point of view? And only then should you speak. And when you're feeling angry, find new ways to regulate. Say, I'm just going to take a little walk, or I'm going to run on the treadmill, or I'm going to do my breathing exercises. You don't get to rage at other people anymore. You learn to wait in lines. You don't yell at grocery store clerks. You stop. You learn to get that contempt under control and stop thinking you've got all the answers and everyone else is more stupid than you. You learn to empathize and you practice that empathy 100 times a day. Those are the steps you have to take.
And then let's say somebody listening has just left a narcissist and they're really experiencing the smear campaign. They're hearing about all the lies about them coming out and all this stuff. What would you say to somebody who's experiencing that right now, to offer some kind of comfort or words of wisdom about that situation?
So if you're in that situation where you're sort of facing down a smear campaign, it's incredibly painful because it feels almost like a new trauma or re-traumatization. This may not give people solace, but if somebody could hear a smear campaign and believe it, I don't know that they were one of your people in the first place. This really becomes a time of cleaning house. Listen, if somebody was subjected to hearing those things about you, they could have called you up and say, "Listen, I want to talk to you. I just heard something today, and I want to share it with you because it's not you." They could hear it
Yeah.
and they can say, "Can we talk about this?" And then you could have that conversation. But for people to buy it hook, line, and sinker and cut you out, they were never your people. And
Right.
so it's the like I said, once you identify the narcissist in your life, you're going to realize they're not the only one. It's like termites. So nobody has one termite. They're just eating into the whole house. And so you have to be very honest that it may be time to say, if you were able to fall for that, then you were never ever noticing me. You never really saw me, and it might be time for us to part ways. That really it's about valuing yourself enough to know that, say, it may be that I once thought I had 50 people in my life, now I have about 8. But if they're 8 good quality people, it's more than enough. That turns out that 50 was an illusion anyhow. It sometimes means cultivating new social support networks for yourself, ones that are separate from the narcissist. Part of the way the narcissistic person exerts their control is sort of overtaking all areas of your life and, encroaching themselves into your friend's life, into your family's life. It really, again, it's a real test, and it's not an easy one, but like I said, it could be a wake-up call.
What the narcissist is experiencing about how they feel about themselves, and
Mhm.
also what the person in a relationship with the narcissist is experiencing. It's all very sad
Mhm.
both ways.
Mhm.
How can we hold compassion for both the narcissist
Mhm.
and for the person in the relationship with the narcissist when we might come into contact with people who have narcissism?
So holding compassion doesn't mean justifying.
Mm,
I'm willing to say, hold all the compassion you want, just don't justify. The
yeah.
danger of people like, I want to be compassionate, and they didn't really mean it. You can be compassionate and they said it. You have to
Right.
tolerate that discomfort of like, I want to be compassionate. This person just did something terrible. You just need to sit with that discomfort and not justify away their bad behavior. That's the real danger that people who are really trying to practice compassion. I think compassion is great. And I always say it's compassion from a distance. If I watch somebody behaving narcissistically, I'm saying, wow, that person is so deeply insecure. And as a result, they're very dangerous. I'm
Mm,
not going to talk smack about them, but I'm going to get out of here.
right.
So I'm not going to engage them. I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to let them in. I'm going to set up a force field of a boundary. I'm not going to disparage them. I'm not going to scream at them. I'm not going to yell at them. I'm not going to smear campaign them. I'm just not going to engage with them.
Mm.
That's the way you can be compassionate. I think too many people think compassionate means I need to be nice to them. No, you don't even need to engage with them. Just step
Right.
away.
I've always known I was different. Even as a 10, 11, 12-year-old boy, I knew that normal people didn't think like this. Like, this doesn't seem normal to me. So I would do whatever I needed to do to be able to fit in and things like that. So I always knew I was different and kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say off. I'm smart and educated and
Right.
whatnot, so I can talk and I can blend in with anybody. But I always knew that I didn't know anything was wrong with me. But I just thought I was different. I was just like, this doesn't feel normal. And even kind
Yeah.
of growing up into my teens and my teenage years and my early adult years and things like that, I was always kind of jealous of people. Like, how do you I would see love stories and how do you feel that way? What makes you feel this way about this person? And I used to read Cosmo magazine. I used to take Cosmo into the bathroom and just read it. So this is how you love. I'd be sitting on the toilet for hours.
Oh,
Are you in the bathroom?
interesting.
Are you still in there? I'm like, yeah, I'm sick. I'm in there reading
I'm learning
Cosmo.
how to love, goddammit.
Yeah. I'm in here reading Cosmo and whatnot, trying to because Cosmo is generally viewed as a women's magazine, so you don't want to be caught reading Cosmo. Hey, reading Cosmo, guys. Trying to learn what do women like? How do I get women to fall in love with me? Do I need to be funny? Do I need to be attractive? Do I need money? What does it take? I always knew something was different, but I could never put my finger on it. I didn't know there was a word or any kind of descriptive anything for what was going on inside my brain until adulthood, into my 30s.
So, what was the particular moment that you decided you wanted to go to therapy and try to figure out what was going on?
So I wouldn't say there was like one particular moment in general. I would say it was like an accumulation of things. It's like, it wasn't just like my wife leaving, I need to go to therapy. It's like, because I've had people leave me before. You know, I've always felt like, oh, well, you can leave. You are replaceable. Like, you can, you know, when she left the first time, I was like, you know, she's like, I'm just gonna leave. I'm like, well, you can leave. You know, I can replace you. Like, it's nothing. Like, it's not that serious. Like, you know, people come and go. But it's just kind of like, it's the fact that when she was leaving, she's like, it's so damn hard to live with a narcissist. I was like, huh? You know.
Oh, wow.
And you know, I'm so analytical and logical, the way my brain thinks. I was like, and the word narcissist in my mind just meant like somebody that was full of themselves and like too overly confident and just full of themselves. I've heard that a bunch of times in my life. So I was just like, I'm a narcissist. Like, I'm actually a very helpful and kind and giving person. You're a narcissist. Like, you take hours to get ready. I'm ready to go in 5 minutes. Like, who is the narcissist here? You know? So it was kind of going back and forth with her on that. And then she just like slammed the door and left. So when she left, you know, I'm about trying to download Tinder. Like, you know, I'm about to move on quick. You know, how I do. You know, I can do me. I'm going to show her how easily replaced she is. You know, I'm just like, But I got to thinking, I was like, why the hell did she call me that in particular? Like, she could have called me she could have called me a plethora of different words and things like that. I was like, why did she choose that word in particular? You know? So I got curious. I got on Google. You know how Google like autofill stuff now. I was like, I started typing in narcissist, and it's like field personality disorder. I was like, huh? I'm like, what is this? So I hit enter on it, and then like it just kind of opened up my world of, you know, of what it was, what's going on with, like, what was going on. I started reading. I was like, so personality disorder? Like, what is this stuff? And I started reading into it and getting deeper into it. And like, when you read stuff like that, and like I said, I've always known I was different. So you start reading things like that, and it kind of like clicks. Like, oh, that's why. But it hurts at the same time because it's like, it's bad. You know, it's not good stuff. I was like, oh, I was like, damn, well, this makes so much sense. You kind of think about all the moments in your life where you've been manipulative and like very low empathy. Like, damn, I was supposed to cry at that moment. I didn't cry. I didn't really care. You know, it's like, it didn't affect me really. I mean, my life was going to move on in the moment. So you start to think like that. You start to like, so I'm processing all this. I was like, I'm fighting the emotions. I'm like, let me text her while I'm in this peak emotion. I'm like, look, I looked it up. I am a narcissist. It's not you. Like, please come home. I'll go to therapy, blah, 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 this, you know. And so she came home. She came home before I went to therapy, which if y'all are listening to this, do not accept them back until they go to therapy. Because I did not go to therapy until after she came back, you know. Because like, if you accept somebody back before they go to therapy, then there's no, so if you accept me back before I go to therapy, then you are taking me who I am, who I was before. I've not made any different changes. Like, I'm still the same person I was when you left, that you left me for. Like, I haven't made any different changes. I just made a different promise. So I was like, she came home, and then a few months later, I didn't go to therapy. And a few months later, she's like, what happened to therapy? We got into arguments. Like, whatever happened to this therapy thing? I was like, huh? You know, I forgot about it. I think she ended up leaving again. And I actually had to go to therapy before she came back. But I ended up going to therapy that year in 2017. And in my community, like the Black community, like, if you go get help or seek help or something like that, it's kind of frowned upon. It's like, you kind of viewed as a weaker person. Like, he's in therapy. They don't listen to this guy. You know what I mean? So you don't want to blurt it out loud. You're going to therapy, you know? So I got on Psychology Today and just put in narcissistic personality disorder. And I just found, I went through scrolling through therapists, whatever. And I sent messages to a few of them. I'm like, hey, I'm pretty sure I have narcissistic personality disorder. What can I do? Like, can I come? How do I set this up? You know, how do I set this up? And I remember asking one of my friends too, because like, I sent her a message on Twitter. I was like, "You think I'm a narcissist?" And then she was like, "I expected her to just say no." She was like, "Yes." She was
Wow.
like, "Yeah." I just remember that, and I was like, "Damn it," you know. So I definitely need to go. I went to therapy or whatever. I just remember sitting in the therapist chair and like boohoo crying the first time. She's like, "So what are you doing here at 31 years old?" 31 years old. I'm like, I got online and installed the personality disorder that people say you can't love, you can't care for people, and it's like, I just don't. This existence seems meaningless to me. Like, what's the hell is the point of living if you can't love and care about people? It's like, you can love and care about people, but you just have to do it in your own way. You know. Like, what is love? Like, and that's why when people always ask me on TikTok and, Instagram and stuff, like, can you love? what is love to you? I heard narcissists cannot love. I was like, what is love to you? Like, what does love mean to you? Kind of subjective to the person. Love is not some one definitive definition.
Right.
So like by the normal definition of love, like I feel like narcissistic love is like conditional. Like I will give you all the love in the world until you break one of these conditions that you might not know I have set. And once you break those conditions, the love is like, take my love away from you. And that's where the breadcrumbing comes in. Like, you know what? I'm gonna give you a chance to earn it back. Like, trickle these breadcrumbs to you, and like I give you such little appreciation and love, and let you eat that up. And like, people eat it up so much, like they've been destroyed so much that they eat that little bit of love that I give them back. They eat it up, and they accept that. Like this is such a little amount of love. Like it doesn't make any kind of sense. Like the definition of love you have. Apply that to yourself, not to this person, But like the low empathy, it kicks in a lot of times. Like, why do you think like this? I'm like, why? That's where I'm like, why? Just leave him. He cheated 20 times. I have to kind of put myself in those shoes. Like, if I was in your situation, how would I get out of this? And it just helps,
Did you truly intend on going to therapy when you were first texting her about it, or was that in your moment manipulative?
It's in the moment manipulative, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It wasn't intent to go. I mean, in the moment. I think I meant it, but I wasn't like intending on following through. Like, I need to mean this. Like in my brain, I was like, you need to go to therapy. I was talking to myself like, go to therapy. Like, okay, cool. And then like, that's how you get it back home. Like therapy works. Like therapy is like, if I say therapy, then people like accept it. People like you're going to therapy. Like it's different. You're already taking the first step. The first step is saying you're going to therapy. It's not going to therapy, So,
Right. That's so fascinating because Dr. Ramani said basically, if you find out somebody is a narcissist or has NPD, don't tell them. Don't talk to them about it. Don't confront them about it. So do you have a different opinion on that? Because it sounds like that moment really impacted you and led to therapy, which led to you changing things, right?
I would agree with her on most cases. You can't because like narcissism is so prevalent in today's society that it's like a derogatory term. It's like you're a narcissist. It's like the bad word. It's like a cuss word now. You know what I mean? Because like everybody, like most people have heard of narcissism and like it's painted in such a bad light, which is deserved. That it's a derogatory term, so people are going to take it like any true narcissist is going to take that as a slight, as criticism, as like as a hateful word to them, and they're going to attack. They're going to attack,
Yeah.
So they're going to take it as an attack on them, a personal attack on them. So I definitely would suggest not telling them that to their face. They kind of have to discover it on their. Like, I don't think I would have discovered it if she wouldn't have said it, but I'm not like I'm not a physically abusive person. Like, like you kind of know who your narcissist is. Like it's always circumstantial in that retrospect right there, because like, and people ask me that all the time on TikTok and stuff, like, how do I tell my ex-boy, my husband he's a narcissist? How do I tell him? Like, I got a message the other day on Instagram, like, which is the message I love to get. She was like, my husband like found out he was a narcissist. I'm like, did you tell him? She's like, no. He was like, literally, he got on TikTok and like you popped up on his page and like,
wow.
He bought my phone. He bought the phone to me. He was like, had tears in his face. Like, I'm not alone, And I'm like, see, I get chill bumps. He said, I'm not alone in the world. So I was like, no, he wants to go to therapy and stuff like that. And that was the main point of me starting my page anyway, was to get more men into therapy regardless, and the fact that he saw it on his own, it was just kind of like, I was like, yay, I get it from both sides of it. I get it from both ends of the spectrum, which I wasn't intending, because like I'm self-absorbed. Like the outside opinion don't really matter to me. So when I was starting my TikTok, I was just like, I'm going to be the main reason people get into therapy. That's my main reason for starting. Like, you go back and look at my first video, and I was just like, hello guys, because my first name is Damon. My name is Damon Lee. I say, hey guys, my name is Damon, and I do have a mental illness. It's called narcissistic personality disorder, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I wanted that to resonate with people who might have what I have. It wasn't intended to like somebody, a victim to hear, like a victim or a survivor to hear, and to be like, oh my God, that makes so much sense to me. That was not the intent, and it's kind of manifested itself into that.
On one of your videos, you kind of talked about like your narcissistic personality disorder isn't cured or gone, but you have the ability to make different choices now. Can you walk us through what a new thought process looks like for you after having therapy?
So I think one of the main differences is like how I respond to my family, because like even my oldest son, he's about to be 13 next month. He said to me a couple months ago, he was just like, yeah, because my youngest son, he was like 4, he's like just at the table doing silly stuff. I'm just like, it's just the littlest stuff. I can just feel it bubbling up. I was like, I'm about to yell at this little man. He about to get the yelling of his life. And he said, my youngest son said something so smart to me and disrespectful. I was about to yell and scream at him. I was like, boy, you don't know who the hell I am, do you? I was like, you about to get this. I'm about to say some rude shit to you. I said it out loud. And my oldest son was like, I don't think you're gonna do that, Dad, because like you don't yell and scream as much as you used to. And that is like, that kind of touched my heart. It was like, and it hurt, stuff like that kind of hurts. It gets on my nerves, the fact that like he had to grow up through, 7, 8 years of me being like just a raging, crazy ass narcissist, undeveloped, untherapy, and it gets on my nerves. Like, and my therapist, she said you kind of have to come to terms with the fact that you're going to be a different person through all 3 of your kids' like lives. Like the first kid, he probably got the worst version of you, but he's going to end up seeing the best version of you. The youngest one, the middle son, like he got, I've been in therapy. I thought it was therapy when he was born. I forgot to mention this. Like when my wife told me I was a narcissist, like she came home early from work and I was yelling like at the top of my lungs at my 6, 7-month-old son. I was just yelling at him, I was screaming at him. So he kind of gets the middle level narcissist, And then my daughter, she's like just born. She's only 2 months old now, so she's gonna get the best version of me. And I'm like, it kind of gets on my nerves that like she's gonna get the best version of me, but my oldest son could have got the best version of me, But it bugs me, But my therapist said you gotta kind of this is one of the things she kind of helps me work on. Like you got to learn how to forgive yourself, because there's a different part of you, and it's different. That person is like, he's not dead and gone because he's still in there, because I will rage and scream out, but like he's more under control. Like your triggers are under control and stuff like that. You kind of learn to let stuff out before it gets to the point where you feel like you gotta, like, I think one of the main things that I used to rage out about is like when I felt unheard, like when I felt unheard and unappreciated, and I would just start like, you get to the point where like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna scream at these people, I'm gonna yell at these people, I'm gonna punch holes, I'm gonna do everything I need to do. And she's like, what were you, like, when I would rage out, she's like, what were you saying when you were raging out? And I would tell her, she's like, you felt unappreciated and unheard. She's like, I was like, yes. She's like, well, while you were raging and screaming, did you feel heard? I was like, yeah. But did you feel appreciated? I was like, no. You had one of the needs met. Like, how can you get both of those needs met? Like, by, I guess, talking before I get to that point, that has helped. I think, like, since my wife left last April and came back like in May, I've only had like one rage episode, which I'm proud of. Sometimes the rage feels good though. Like sometimes, like I think that's why people like my narcissist love to yell and shout at me, because it feels good. Like it's just like it's empowering to yell and scream at somebody. It's like, because I feel big and powerful now because I'm yelling and screaming. But after the rage subsides, you have this like little brief moment of embarrassment. Like, why the hell was I yelling and screaming? Like, why did I do that? But then the other side of your brain, the narcissism kicks in, like, you know why you were yelling and screaming, because they got on your nerves. They wouldn't appreciate you. Like, they deserved it. It's kind of like fighting yourself. It's kind of like you wake up every day and you kind of have a fight with yourself. And like, I'm learning like the good side is winning more than the narcissist side, That's why I would tell people I'm not cured, because it's still there. I would rage out and scream. I would still manipulate people when I need to. And I would still super gaslight people,
Do you feel that you had a family member growing up, or you grew up in an environment that contributed to you becoming somebody with narcissistic personality disorder?
So my therapist, we kind of went over this, like, because my dad wasn't ever really in my life, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like, he wasn't like, he didn't abandon us by any means. I knew him, I saw him here and there, he was, he was more like the adult friend, the cool uncle you saw every once in a while. Like, hey, uncle, but it was your dad, Mm-hmm. So he didn't appreciate and give you the love and affection that you needed and craved. Like, no matter how much you did, no matter how hard you tried to get it, you didn't get it. So, and like, I feel like that helped, because I don't have any memories before like age 7. My mind kind of I feel like my mind kind of turned on when I was 7 years old. And like, the first thing I remember is like, getting like playing the joke on him and trying to get him to come out and play with us, and he ended up coming outside and like hitting me across the leg, and I just remember that, I just remember like feeling so much pain and anger and whatever, but I didn't cry, I was like, he likes this, I'm not gonna cry. A 7-year-old, you remember 7-year-old? I'm like, I'm not gonna cry. But when he left and he went back upstairs, I was screaming and raging out. I remember just being so goddamn mad at that moment. I'm like, you know what? Nobody's ever gonna hurt me again. Like nobody ever on this planet will have the ability or power to hurt me ever again unless I can hurt them, you know? So I think that might have been the key point of where all this came from, you know? Because like, I always wondered. Like, I never had a relationship with him growing up, so I've always wondered, like, what the hell, you know, like why did he do that? You know, why am I like this? You know, so I didn't know. Like, did he have a dad? You know, I didn't know. So I got on ancestry.com and got curious. I wanted to fill out my family tree because I know my grandma and all my uncles and aunts on his side, but like I never knew like his dad, my grandpa, my paternal grandfather. It's like, so who is this dude? And so I got on ancestry.com and I actually found out who he was. I found his name and everything. I'm like, yeah, I got his name. You know, there's no pictures or whatever. Like, I got his name and the date he died and everything. I don't know if you know Ancestry.com, but it gives you like, you know, it gives you hints on family members. Like, here's a hint. So I clicked the hint. It just so happened to be my grandfather's death certificate. I was like, oh shit. I'm like, damn, this is super intensive, you know. So I get on there, I zoom in, you know, and like it's like date of death, time of death. I'm like, dang, he died on a Monday at 5:30 in the morning. Then you go to the cause of death, and it says like suicide.
Wow.
So he decided to get up at 5:30 on a Monday morning, go downstairs with his wife and 3 kids in the house, and shoot himself in the head in the bathroom. Because of what? Was he suffering from depression? You don't know. This is like what, the 60s, early 70s. You know, so could that have caused my dad to have abandonment issues and not want to be in his kids' lives to the point where he can abandon them like his dad abandoned him? Yeah. So they kind of help with the, not necessarily the forgiving process, but kind of taking some of my power back from him. Because every time I think about him, I used to think about him, I used to get mad. I used to be angry and, you know, and stuff like that. But now it's kind of like, man, it is who it is, you know? So that kind of help. Ancestry.com help.
So fascinating, I'm sure, for you to see into the past and try to understand what made your dad. And, you know, I'm sure you could keep going. What made your grandpa? Like if you were able to get into your great-grandpa, you know, it's like, so would a narcissist prefer to break up with someone so they can avoid the feeling of abandonment or rejection, or would they prefer to push someone to break up with them so they can kind of feel like the victim?
I would say both. Sometimes it could be both, because one person might leave you before you can leave them. Like I can sense, because you know I can be very intuitive. When my wife's about to leave, I could feel that she's about to leave. I was like, she's not happy, you know, but I'm not gonna leave her. You know, so if she leaves me, then I have the excuse like, hey, look, I tried to make it work, but she decided I wasn't good enough. So she left me. So this is why I'm with this person over here, you know. I tried. Hey, daddy tried. Like, you don't have a two-parent household because mama decided to leave dad, you know. So sorry. So that can be the excuse. Like, sometimes narcissists will push you to leave them so they can have that front-end excuse. Like, I tried my hardest. And she, as you can see, she left. You know, she wasn't happy with my attempts of trying, so she left me. That can be an excuse, but sometimes people will like literally build up like their arsenal, like their bench, and just like, you know, want to promote somebody to start her. Like, you know, I'm not happy with this person, so let me leave her at the peak of our relationship, because it's all downhill from here at this peak. I'm gonna leave her at the peak and start at another peak with somebody else. I can go uphill. It's kind of like I leave you at this peak, I meet somebody, and we're at this peak at the same time. So, but my relationship with you is going to go downhill, but mine with her, it might go uphill a little bit before it goes downhill. So I can start over, start her fresh, you know, and it could be like a clean break in my brain, because it's like just a transference of like level. I'm on the same level with this person I am with you, but now, you know, I can still go up. We've reached our peak. We've reached our peak right here. We can only go down, because like there's nothing more I can do, you know. But right here, if I start here, I can go up. I'm gonna drop down sooner or later, but then you end up replacing that person. It's like a continuous cycle that I've seen. I've done it before in my life, like my younger years. You know what I mean? I've like left people at the peak of our relationship and ghosted them and stuff like that for somebody else. You know, I did that when I met my wife. I posted something yesterday on TikTok about that. Like, I went back in the archives of me and my wife's like messages on Facebook, and I met her. on Facebook in like 2011, like November, and we kind of started dating. We started officially dating like December 5th of 2011. But December 3rd of 2011, the girl I was originally talking to decided to send December 5th of 2011, she decided to send a very hateful message to my wife about me. She wasn't my wife at the time. She was my girlfriend, but like, she was like, I just want you to let you know, I've been talking to this dude for 8 months, and he's never, ever mentioned you. He mentioned you recently, but he just said y'all wasn't serious or whatever, and now you're his girlfriend. I just need to let you know what type of person he really is, and blah, blah, blah this. Have a good life. I just want him to be happy he found somebody else. And she sent me that message. I remember her sending me that message, and I heart dropped. I was like, how do I get out of this? I just reread the message, and I just started picking it apart. I was like, you can see at the bottom of the message how jealous she is. She said she's so happy I found somebody else, but at the beginning of the message, she was pissed off. Like, so how does this make sense? Like, she's clearly just jealous of us. Like, just block her.
So you in that moment had that panic of like,
yeah, your heart dropped. You like that,
and you just scrambled to try to. And did your wife believe it?
Yeah, she believed it.
The whole like Hoover versus smear campaign. What differentiates someone being the type of person that you would want to hoover back after you discard them or are discarded versus do a smear campaign and feel that you will never be trying to hoover them back in?
I think most, so people have it so ingrained in their head that like every narcissist is going to be the same. It's like a blueprint. Like, every narcissist is going to hoover you some way, shape, or form, So if the Hoover, I feel like if the Hoover does not work, like if they cannot get you back into the relationship any way, shape, or form, then they will start the smear campaign. It's like, okay, I tried to make one last grand gesture of relationship. Now let's go over here. And like sometimes the smear campaign can be a form of a Hoover. Like if I'm smearing your name, and you want me to stop? How else do you get me to stop? You have to reach out to me. So you reach out to me. He's like, hey, Kelsey, like, you want me to stop? Just come have lunch with me. Let's sit down and talk this thing out. A lot of times I get you to sit down and talk to me. Okay, where? I just want this to stop, and sit down and talk to you. And like the feelings can because it's always better face to face. It's like a narcissist will always try to get you face to face to talk to you. Like, I don't want to do this over text. Let's talk. Let's meet in person and talk. Can you please stop Can you please stop smearing me online? Blah, blah, blah. Like, look, I don't want to do this over text. Meet me at the bar. Sit down at the bar and talk. And you see my face, it brings back emotions. It's almost impossible not to have memories of me. Just like the good times. Like,
yeah.
Hey,
wow.
Let's talk this out now. Like, I know, like, I got mad. Like, you broke my heart. Like, I tried to get you back. You got mad. So, like, I don't know what to say. I love you. I still love you. I still care about you. Like, so sometimes the smear campaign can lead to me hoovering you back in.
Wow. Yeah. Kind of that angle of like, I loved you so much and you hurt me so much that it drove me to do this just because I'm so heartbroken. And yeah. Wow.
And if you take me back, guess what? The smear campaign becomes true. Everything I said about you becomes true because like now, like everything I've said about you is true because you take me back. Like, oh, they're back together now. So they must have worked through those issues that he was talking about online. Like, so it was true. Kelsey really did do that,
Holy shit.
And sometimes the smear campaign can be like when somebody like is smearing you to death, like they know they can't get you back. So they just want to destroy your reputation so nobody else will want you, So it can also work that way as well. So like, I can't have you, no one else will. But I'm not a violent person. I'm a covert narcissist. So let me do it this way, Let me destroy you so nobody else will want you. You're not gonna you gonna replace me? No, you're not. Not on my watch. So like I tell people, like, you need to don't watch if you get discarded or whatever, do not watch the social media because it's literally showtime. Like, hey guys, I met this girl. She's the love of my life. Like, I know I've been through some terrible relationships in my past. Like, that's all aimed to hurt you. Like, who the hell else will read that and feel some type of way other than you? Stuff like that is meant to hurt you. You're like Showtime. I'm gonna put on the most spectacular show to show you that I'm doing better without you. Not that I'm doing well. I'm gonna be doing better without you. And it's all geared to hurt you. They're like, don't watch the social media because it's going to hurt you. Like, you're gonna go looking for pain and you're gonna find it. Like, how did he move on 3 days after we broke up? Like, that person was already in the picture. Like, I can't go get a girlfriend right now 3 days later. Like, baby, we done. Get on Tinder and find. I can't do that right now. So this person's already around. That person's already in the wings waiting or already, That person's already there. They didn't just move on 1 week later. That person was already in the picture. I feel like people think like they moved on so fast. Like that person's already there. It's not as fast as it seems when you like look at it when you peel back the layers. Like, wait, they've been talking for 6 months. So it makes sense on the other person's end. Like, we've been together for 6 months. On your end, like they only been together for 2 weeks online. So it looks fast, but it's not really as fast. So there's layers. Peel back the layers like an onion.
Yeah. Can you explain the reverse hoover I saw in one of your videos? What is that?
So the reverse hoover is something like a silent treatment. Like I can give you like after we break up, because in the reverse hoover is just because narcissism is so ingrained in society that you expect to be hoovered. So if I do not hoover you, you're like, well, he didn't hoover me, so is he really a narcissist? Maybe I was wrong. Wait, let me reach out to him. And then you reach out to me. So now I got you. Like I didn't have to do anything. You came back to me. So
Dude, you are a magician.
Yeah. So now when you come back, guess what? You are accepting of the behavior I did before. You just took me back because in your brain you convinced yourself that I'm not who you thought I was, based on me being silent.
How does that work with your wife then? Because your wife came back to you. You guys are together. I know it's a little different because you are in therapy. You are self-aware. But like how do you not take advantage of her kindness and her willingness to have you in her life?
Generally, people will ask like, because you're like, so it works with you and your wife. So does being self-aware mean that it works? I'm like, no, it doesn't mean that it works.
Oh,
because, like
people looking for hope. Like,
people
sure.
like, I was like, look, I've been in therapy and diagnosed since 2017. Like she left me in 2020. Like I've been aware of who I am for a long time. So has she. She left me in 2020. So you kind of got to put it together like that. It doesn't always work that way, But right. I think it's just the fact that like when she left, the last time that she left, it just kind of like kicked things. When she came back, it kind of kicked things in motion because like she felt like he has to want me back because he doesn't necessarily need me. Like he doesn't like I don't need her to cook for me. I don't need her to clean for me. I'm self-sufficient in everything. I pay my own bills. I pay the bills of the house. Like he has to want me back for a reason because like he can move. Like I can move on. I can do that. But I want her. So I made the conscientious effort. And we've been to marriage counseling too, so I had to make the conscientious effort to prove that I want her in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like every morning, like my marriage counselor said, you have to what's called the 3 A's, like affectionate, appreciation, and I got the last A. I'll think of it later.
Yeah.
I got 2 of the A's down.
There you go. That's something. In your experiences in your romantic relationships, what triggers the devaluation phase for you, or is there a particular thing that does? So
it like literally, like remember I said love is like narcissist love is conditional. So I feel like it could be triggered by when they have like it could definitely be triggered by when they like I got you, I have you, or it could be triggered by you violating one of those conditions of love that I have set forth. You might not know the conditions, but like if you violate one of those conditions, then like I can't love you. Like you're like in my brain, like you're not who I thought you were. So I'm going to treat you as such. Like I remember like when I first met my wife, we were like, we were just like, hot and heavy, love bombing and all that other good stuff. Hot and heavy and vacationing together, just hanging out together, you know what I mean? And then I remember she told me about like an experience that she had. And I was like, wait, with who? And I ended up knowing the guy. I was like, huh. You're not who I thought you were, And immediately my mindset changed from that point on. I was like, she's not who I thought she was. So I'm like, so you can be fake, so I'm gonna be fake. I'm gonna treat you as such, And my brain just kind of transferred into like treating her bad, treating her worse. Not like you don't deserve all this love I'm giving you. Let me take it down a notch. Let me pull it down here. Let me pull it down here. And it's just like that. That's what triggered it. Like I feel like you lose your value to that person, like through violating one of those conditions of love that I have set forth that you don't know about. You don't know the conditions now. By violating one of those conditions, now since you violated the condition, like you don't deserve as much love as I used to give you. So you're not worth as much. So your value has lessened to me. Now you're being devalued. Because in my brain it's deserved. You deserve this devalue. You're not as valuable now. So and bring you down here. Well, I feel like you deserve, And And it's just how my brain. I remember that moment. I was sitting on the bed of the bed. I remember the exact moment. I can tell you the exact moment. I just remember that because I was like,
was it something that she even thought was like a high stakes thing she was just like sharing a story with you and she had no idea that was going to be the thing that
you don't know the conditions. So you're talking freely because you trust me, you love me. You're like, this person is unlike anybody I've ever met. So you're just sharing your life. It just so happened that you sharing your life story got on my nerves. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Can you spot other narcissists? And is it off-putting or is it attractive to you? Do you want to be friends with other narcissists or romantically involved?
Romantically, I've dated another narcissist before. Work. So I got a taste of my own medicine, so to speak. I don't think that can work. Because like I feel like I was trauma bonded. I don't like that. So I don't think that can work. But spotting other narcissists in my life now, yeah, I can spot them now. I have to talk to them and get to know them. If I like, wait, you got some shit going on. I can feel it. Your energy is different. So I'll share just to get them on the level. I'll share like some darkness with them, and they're like, yes. I'm like, gotcha. I knew it. Like one of my because like, my friends and family see my videos and stuff now, so they've opened up to me a little bit more as well. Cause like people like one of my best friends is like he's like open, like we've had long conversations about this. Like he's openly admitted that he's a narcissist. Like he's like, yeah, I'm 100. Like after watching your videos and stuff like that, I'm 100% a narcissist. Like I know, And
You're like, I know. This is an interesting question that came in. What made you initially attracted to your partners, and was it out of good intent?
I feel like I've never been like the person like I'm gonna just get her and ghost her. You know what I mean? I've always been like I said, I used to read Cosmo magazine. I used to watch Disney movies. So I always wanted to be a Disney prince. I want that. I was like, I want to be the person to sweep you off of your feet. So that's what you learn. Like I feel like people like narcissists are so manipulative. Like I learned it from Disney. Y'all watching Disney movies want to be the princess, so I want to be the prince. And then like to me, like some people could it be true for some people? Yeah, it can be out of ill intent. But like to me, it's like never been out of ill intent. It's like literally, I want to be with this person. I want to make this person happy. I want to get this person everything. And but I'm not a damn Disney prince. So once I can't hold this up for too long. Like, oh, I can't do this. And then when you stop doing it, it's like, hey, you're not the person I met. I'm like, I am the person you met. I was trying to get you. Now you're here. So this is who I really am. Well, you like it? You still like me?
Right.
I don't know. You stay. It'll stay and try to get that person back. You stay because you're trying to get the Disney prince back. Like the Disney prince wasn't necessarily there. I read that. I learned how to be that.
Yeah.
I developed him, and then I can blame you for thinking that. It's like that isn't real. Like this stuff isn't real. Like I was sweeping you off your feet. This is men are supposed to do. Like Aladdin did this. Aladdin lied to Jasmine. They end up happily ever after.
Aladdin did lie to Jasmine pretty fucking hard.
Let me go to the genie for therapy. Genie's like, look, you gotta be real with her, man. Be real with her. She'll look at the real you. And then in the narcissist's brain, she can't love Aladdin. She can only love Prince Aladdin or Prince
Prince Ali.
Prince, Ali.
Oh
yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
She can't love Aladdin for himself. Like why would she love a street urchin or whatever, street thief? Like, but she loved the prince, So that's how I felt. I'm like, why would she love this street urchin? Like, what? She can't. Why would she love me at this point? It gets kind of confusing. It's like deeper,
Can you share some examples on how a narcissist might isolate you from your friends or family? What kind of things might they say to influence you in that way?
Why are you sharing everything? Like, why are you telling your friends about our relationship? Your friends don't need to know about what's going on inside of our house. Like, kind of keep that in between us. So you start wanting to be less around your friends and start sharing with your friends less. Then let's move across the country. Let's move over here. Let's go. Like, quit that job that you need. Now you're like, if you quit your job that you love and need to be a stay-at-home mom, or sometimes it happens like you stay-at-home husband or stay-at-home man. Like now you financially dependent on me. So now you're under my thumb. Like you can't do anything without my say-so. The isolation, especially with the family members. I think I did a video on this recently. Like don't tell your mom and dad. Your mom and dad do not like me, so I don't want to be around them. So if they have an event, do not invite me to the event because I don't like going places where I'm not liked, where I'm not appreciated. So when you get ready to leave to that event, like, have fun, leave me here by myself. So now you don't want to go to the family's event. Now you spend time with me, like, so people stop inviting you to stuff. Like, well, Delanie doesn't show up ever, so why should we invite her? Like, I'm not going to invite Delanie anymore for her to just say no. Now you're by yourself. Now you're with me, Delanie. Now we're besties.
Yeah. There was another thing on one of your videos that says like a narcissist will never forget you. What does that mean? Like if you've been discarded by somebody that was your narcissistic supply, will you always kind of want to seek revenge, and will you act on that? Like, how does that shit work?
So with me, I don't think I would ever forget the people who hurt me, like, it's just like, I just want to hurt you some way, shape, or form. Like, not physically. I'm not physically abusive. Like, mentally, I just want to get into your brain one time. One time. If I gotta be on TV, your favorite TV show or something like that, you watching TV with your new husband and new family, or whatever. You're eating snacks. You see me pop on your TV show. Even though I won't see you feel it, I'll know you feel it. Knowing helps.
Does a narcissist ever discard with the intent of potentially trying to like pick it back up at a different time? Or like, are you guys thinking that far ahead, or in the moment, are you just like, I'm kind of done with this. I'm going to see what this is.
It can be a little bit of both, because like a lot of times you'll see like a narcissist break up with somebody and then circle back to them. Like they'll keep them on a hook. Just like, why did I leave? Like, why did I leave Delanie for Kelsey? I just don't like. I'm like, we had such a good relationship. Like, why not? I'm just so stupid, Just like, I don't know. Like, have you moved on yet? Like, I don't know. Just ignore me. Just stupid stuff like that to keep you on the hook. Like, to keep you from moving on. Like especially if they don't give you closure. Like, people crave closure so much. If I don't give you closure, then the relationship is not officially closed. Like, I can move on with this person over here, but you never got closure. So you're like, wait, how long does, I get people ask me all the time, like, how long does the love bombing stage last with the next supply? Like, it could be forever. You just never know. Like, just don't worry about it. Like, please move on. I know it's not that easy, but it's like, it could be a very long time. But like, if they never offer you closure and want to remain good friends with you after abandoning you like viciously, they are intending to keep you on the hook just in case the other relationship doesn't pan out. They can just circle back to what they know. It's like once you in strange territories of being single, and if I happen to get discarded, like, I go back to what I know. Like, I know you. Like, we were good together, weren't we? Like, come on, let's do this.
Even if you've already discarded that person in the past.
Yeah. Because some people are still so emotionally attached, they will take me back, open arms. Sometimes you convince them that it's their fault. Like, we didn't work out. Like, well, if you did, like, this person does this and does this and does this, and now it's kind of make you compete with them. Like, now you trying to do this on your end. Like, well, I can do this better. I can go to the gym. I can go. I can go back to school. I can get educated. Now you're competing with the new supply to be better than the new supply. So if I ever leave that person, like, I did everything you said I should do. Now I go back to you. So now we have a new peak. Now our peak is raised. Like, now you're the person I wanted you to be. And a little while later, like, discarded again.
That's so fascinating to me that you were talking about that conversation with your wife where she opened up to you and you went into that devaluation phase.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't who you thought she was.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me that you can see her so differently, and then to the point of potentially like discarding. But then how does your mind then get back to a place of valuing her enough to want to be with her still after you've devalued her? Does that make sense?
Sometimes it can be just time. And then sometimes you kind of can see the potential in this person. Like, you kind of go through this internal battle with yourself. Like, is it really that serious? Like, isn't like, this is way before you. Like, this person didn't know you existed. Like, all right, is it worth it? Can we make this work? Like, can you get past this? Like, can I? It's like a battle. It's like literally, it's the battle every day. Like, decision. Like, I feel like this what therapy has helped me with the most. Like, decision making and impulse control more than anything.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not as erratic as I used to be. Like, I just don't make like volatile decisions. Like, I'll think about it and just like kind of weigh my options and make a decision based on like logical facts as opposed to my like, my erratic emotions in the moment. That makes sense.
With your videos, I noticed that like guilt comes up a lot. Can you talk about how guilt is weaponized against the person that the narcissist might be in a relationship with?
Oh yeah, like guilt, like your guilt can be used against you. Like if I can create just the semblance of guilt in you, it's like, look, you gave up on us. I didn't break up with you. You broke up with me. And now our family is torn apart because you decided to do this. Now you feel a little guilty, like, damn. Like, now my kids have to go up in 2 households. Now, what do I do? What do I do? Could I, now in your brain, it's like, you don't know what to do. It's like, it's just guilt and confusion. Like, you shouldn't even feel guilty about that. Making the decision that's going to be best for you. But like, if I can use a little bit of guilt, especially if I share some trauma with you, like, look, this is what I went through as a kid. Like, I have abandonment issues, and you were just adding to that now by abandoning me. Like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to add to those issues. I don't want to add to his trauma. Like, so you don't leave. Now you stay. Now you still unhappy, but now you don't leave because you don't want to be guilty. And I see like people like like the threat of like unaliving themselves is like prevalent with narcissists. Like, if you leave me, there's no point in me living anymore. And they use it. Oh my, that's so. I hate that so much. Like, it's so weaponized. It's like, there's no point in me living anymore. If you leave me, I'm just gonna, I'm done with living. And I hate. That's one of the main I hate. That's one of my kind of my triggers. Because I hate seeing like that weaponized against people. Like, it's not your responsibility to keep somebody alive. You're not a damn paramedic, or are you?
Right. I've seen that you're also a huge proponent of no contact. Can you explain why no contact is something that you kind of recommend versus some of the other methods like Grayrocking or whatever else is out there?
No contact works. I think Grayrocking works to like when you get out of a relationship, to like break the bonds and things like that. But I think no contact is the best way when you get out of a relationship, especially if you don't have kids. Like, just don't contact me, because like, especially don't meet up with me in person. Like, I know it's hard to just block somebody, but like, if you meet up with me in person, it's a lot harder to say no to my face. It's like, it's a lot. Just human nature. Like, you don't want to see somebody that you love and care about for so long, like in person, boohoo crying because you lost them. You're like, please, I'll change, please. It's hard for you to say no, unless you stone face, unless you got down, went through it. You're like, look. If you can look in my face and say no, I got tears and snot running my eyes, like, you're a soldier. It's tough on people to do that, It's hard to go cold turkey. You know what I mean? It's so hard to go cold turkey, just with anything. It's like with any addiction. I've heard like the narcissists become addictive to you. So it's just like with any addiction, it's hard to go cold turkey. So you need to like find a support system and like definitely no contact. Block me. Because if you don't block me, I'm gonna hammer away at you. Just like if you can break the bonds of no contact, it's gonna hurt at first, from what I hear, but like on my end, it's gonna hurt anyway. So this motherfucker, like, I want to contact you, I want to get you back in my life. So if you like, and it hurts me not hearing from people, but like if you can go no contact, like, and get through the barrage and stuff that I put you through, then like you can win. But like if you respond and like, it's like relapsing. And I get this so much, like I was no contact for 3 weeks and I just relapsed because it was Easter. I had to wish this person a happy Easter or a happy birthday or something like that. And that when you break no contact, you can get your feelings hurt really, really bad. Right. Like really bad. Yeah. Stay the course. Don't be friends with me. God. Like, don't can I still be friends with my narcissistic ex? Come on. Why would you want to be friends with me? Like, somebody that put you through hell? You really want to be my friend? Okay, bestie. I have this girl I'm going to see tomorrow night. What's the best way I can treat her better than I treated you? Answer that question. Hey, we're besties though, right? We're friends. Answer that question. You don't love me anymore? Be my friend and help me treat this other girl better. Like, you don't want to do that.
Right.
Just go away,
That's so interesting, because when I think that if you were to start devaluing somebody and then they were to want to stay, it seems like that almost becomes unattractive to you, because you're like, well, why don't you respect yourself enough to leave? However, if they leave, then you're like, well, but don't leave me.
Let me dip first. They don't abandon me. I mean, that's when they try so hard to get you back. Even though they devalue you to a point where you like don't care anymore, like, let me leave you. Don't leave me, because it's still the same. It still has the same effect as like leaving me fresh. Yeah. Wow. I think the relationship with my wife is like, it's still, I have to win, but it's like more and more along the lines of like win-win. Like I kind of like, it's kind of win-win situations. Like I present arguments and stuff like that. Like I think I win by being able to talk about it. So I still win. I still win. Like, did I lose? Like, was my point stupid? Like, yeah, it's kind of stupid. Like, I won by talking about it. I still win. I won. Yay.
Could you share how a narcissist might apologize to you?
Yeah, I've said this to my wife before. She's like, I was like, look, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry your feelings are hurt, but like, I can't help that I'm such a good arguer. I've just been arguing my whole life. Like, sorry. An apology from a narcissist, like, literally, it's a lot of times it's gonna be either backhanded or it's gonna be, or it's to gain something. Like, if we're arguing and you are right, like, I'm sorry. Like, can you shut up now? Can you be quiet about this? Like, I apologize. I'm so sorry. Cool. Peace. Let me watch my movie. Let me go. Let me do what I was doing. Sorry. You want to hear me say sorry? You want me to apologize? Okay, cool. I'm so sorry. Bye. We done?
Is it a lot of like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but here's where I'm coming from kind of thing too?
Yeah.
Like, is there a justification process?
I have to justify it in my brain. It's just like immediate justification. It's like a little inkling. It's just like, I think my therapist called it the spectrum of remorse and the spectrum of guilt. Like, I feel it in the moment, but then I kind of justify it in my brain. So it's just kind of like, okay, I get it, but my brain says this. I know what you're saying. I know logically it makes sense, but my brain said this. I'm gonna go with my brain.
You're saying that it hurts you just as much to be left if you're in a love bombing phase with somebody as if you were also in the devaluation phase with somebody. Like, if you've already gone into devaluing somebody, or you're in like the beginning love bombing, great. If that person leaves, you're saying that it hurts you the same amount?
It just hurts regardless. It might not be at the same level, but it's still abandonment. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm love bombing you, giving you all I got, and you ghost me, it hurts. I'm like, damn, what did I do wrong? That hurts. Like, you ghosted this?
You mentioned plausible deniability and how you can set yourself up for that later on. Can you explain a situation where that might be the case? In the future, you can say, I never said that.
Oh, yeah. Because like, I used to do that with my wife. She had these like pair of pants I used to hate. I always just say like, you like those pants? Those your favorites? So, yeah, I like them. I'm like, cool, okay. Every time I see him, I was like, it's not just like, those again? Oh, nice. Do you not like these pants? Like, I never said I didn't like those pants. You think I don't like them because I talk about them. Like, they're your pants. Like, you want to wear them? Like, go about it. I never said you shouldn't wear them or they didn't look good. You created that in your own brain. That was not me. Sorry. But did I say it? I did not say that, though, did I? You said it.
What's the fear of being direct? Like, hey, babe, those are not my favorite pants on you. I think you look better in these other pants. Like, what's the fear of kind of just being direct about something like that?
Because you can say I said it, because it directly came from me. Because there's no ability to manipulate you later on it. Like, if I say that directly, then like, I'll say it now because like I've been in therapy. I'll just say that, hey, I wouldn't say about the clothes and stuff like that. Got a baby and stuff like that. You're beautiful. But if I because it just gives me the ability to say something different later on in the relationship. Like I never said that. You can't hold it against me if I never said it. So if I say it out loud, if I express myself out loud, you can use it against me to hurt me or to like manipulate me possibly. So if I never said it, I never said it out of my mouth. You said it. You created this reality in your head, gaslighting. You gaslit now. You're like, wait, did he really say that? No, wait. He didn't say it. So he's right. He never said it. I said this. So do I have body image issues? It's all in my brain. Like, now I win. Now you're confusing yourself. Now I ain't got to do it. I don't have to say another word now about those pants.
Well, and that's the power of gaslighting too, is that if those sort of situations start to accumulate, then you can start to keep a running tally in your head of all of these times that you were quote unquote wrong, misinterpreted. And then that's when people start to completely doubt themselves and doubt their own sense of right and wrong and what's going on in the relationship. It's
you know what I meant. I know what I meant, but I never said it. So
what would you say to somebody who thinks they have NPD, and what would you say to somebody who thinks they're in a narcissistic relationship? What would you say on those both ends of that spectrum to those people?
I feel like if you have NPD, if you feel like you have narcissistic traits or tendencies or whatever, I feel like therapy is hope. Go talk to a therapist so you can be a personal setting where you can express yourself is more empowering than anything I can imagine. Because I say a lot of stuff on TikTok and I say a lot of stuff on Instagram, but I don't say everything. I don't say everything's going on my brain because people wouldn't like me, but if I say everything's going on my brain, and that's cool. But I can say everything's going on my brain. I can say to my therapist, and she doesn't judge me. She comes, she gives me an explanation behind it. I try to rationalize it in my brain. If it doesn't make sense, we'll go over next session. So I feel like therapy is key. Therapy is power. Therapy is taking. If you are a narcissist, you're all about control and power anyway. So therapy is about taking back your power and control of your own existence, of our own like why are we here? Therapy is giving yourself the power to have a purpose, because that's the biggest struggle I think I had before I went to therapy was I felt like I didn't have a purpose, so I was throwing shit at the wall trying to get it to stay up. I feel like therapists gave me the purpose to be who I am now and talk openly to y'all about how I feel and what I think. People gonna judge me. People gonna see this and like, he's a narcissist and he's an evil person. Even though the stuff I say helps people. On the other end of the spectrum, if you're dealing with a narcissist relationship, it's not. I know you want to try to fix somebody. I know you want to try to help, because a lot of people who are in narcissistic relationships are healers and empaths and things like that. You want to try to fix the person because you've given yourself all the love and you've given them all the love and care that you possess. But by giving them all these pieces of yourself, you started to lose those pieces of yourself. You can't give more to somebody than you give to yourself. So if you are happy giving more to yourself to somebody else than you are to yourself, then stay in a relationship, be happy, If that's your version of happiness, then so be it. I'm not judging anybody. Cause everybody I talk to does not want to leave their narcissist. Cool, man. If you make it work, if that's your prerogative, cool. I'm not here to judge nobody. I don't judge. People don't judge me, but I'm not here to judge anybody. But stand in your strength and learn to love yourself more, than you love the other person, because self-love is so self-love on both ends of the spectrum. It gives you your power. If somebody told my wife to leave, she'd have left. I probably wouldn't be who I am right now. But if you are everybody is not me though. I'm just I'm always I'm so inquisitive and logical. I want to know why I do what I do anyway. A lot of narcissists have addictions. My addiction is the human brain and how it works and how it functions. Why I'm doing what I'm doing. My addiction is people. What makes you tick?
Yeah.
So everybody, self-love is best.
All right, everybody. I hope that episode was helpful for you. You can learn more about Dr. Ramani at her website, drramani.com. That's DoctorRamani.com. And then you can find Lee Hammock across social media. His username is @mentalhealness. That's MENTALHEALNESS. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in to Self-Helpless. You can find our brand new merch, Patreon community, and other fun goodies at selfhelplesspodcast.com. We'd be thrilled if you left an Apple Podcast review, shared this episode with a friend, or post about it on Instagram and tag us at Self-Helpless Podcast so we could repost you and say hi. As an independently produced show, we sincerely appreciate your support. Thanks, everybody.